Jennifer Schutter, Field Specialist in Horticulture with University of Missouri Extension. I'm going to talk about spring garden preparation. Spring is starting to arrive, and there are many things to do in both the garden and the yard at this time. Start with a cleanup. Pick up sticks in the yard and rake up leaves. Leaving leaves on the grass can smother it. Clean out flower beds. Rake out leaves, as well as cut back perennial plant foliage, but leave the roses until later in the spring. Fill containers with fresh soil and potting mix, and you can add to what is already in them. Now is the time to plant cool season vegetables like collards, spinach, lettuce, kale, radish, and snow peas, and flowers like pansies, dianthus, and snapdragons in both the containers and raised beds. Containers and raised beds warm faster than the direct garden soil. Be ready to cover them if the temperatures fall below 28 degrees. These photos show you some lettuce that was direct seeded into a container, as well as collards and spinach. Giant Noble is a spinach variety that I like for blanching and freezing. It produces a large leaf, as you can see in the photo. It is as big as the palm of my hand. Now, Bloomsdale is a common spinach variety, and that one can also be froze, but it is better for salads and fresh eating than Giant Noble. These photos show you sugar snap peas. These are the peas where you eat the entire pod, and these are good for snacking on. And you can see in these photos that they were grown in large containers as well as a raised garden bed. Pansies are good for early season coloring containers or flower beds. Pansies like cool weather. They actually don't like hot weather. They will start to fade as we get into the warmer months of June and July. Dianthus, also known as pinks and sweet William, and snapdragons also like cool weather and can be planted as early as March. Some other things to do in the garden and yard are plant potatoes, carrots, and onions. I prefer to do this in late March. I find that if I plant potatoes and onions too early, the soil is often too cold and they just sit there. And if we get rain, they can rot. So I find that if I wait until the end of March or even the first week of April, I have a better crop of potatoes and onions. And really the same with carrots. Carrots can take a while to germinate, and I usually plant them the last part of March. Wait until May to plant warm season vegetables like tomatoes and squash and eggplant. But if you're going to start seeds of those plants, like the tomatoes and peppers and eggplant, you do want to start those now. They'll need about 2 months indoors before you set them outside. If you're planning to start cucurbit seed like pumpkin and melons and cucumbers, you want to wait and start those about 3 weeks before you plan to plant them outside. So if you're going to plant them in mid-May, you'll want to start them indoors in late April. Start buying seed if you haven't done that already. Last year, some garden centers and companies ran out of seed. Now is the time to prune fruit trees if you haven't already done it. The buds are really starting to swell on the fruit trees, and the trees need to be pruned as soon as possible. As do small fruit plants like blackberries, raspberry, gooseberry, and grapevines. They need to be pruned right now. Also, prune ornamental trees and shrubs. And wear gloves if you're going to do a lot of pruning, or you may end up with blisters on your hand. Take wraps off trees that you may have wrapped for winter protection. Put fresh mulch around trees to avoid hitting them with the lawnmower or the weed whacker. And now is a good time to sharpen mower blades. Give the mower and tiller a tune-up if needed. If you don't have sharp mower blades, your grass will have brown, jagged edges at the top. Here's what not to do. Never work a wet garden. Wait until the soil dries out, then work it up and plant. Do not uncover or cut back roses yet. Roses are more sensitive to very cold temperatures than other perennial plants. So we usually wait until early April to cut back or prune back roses. Do not uncover strawberry beds. Strawberry beds should be covered with straw right now for winter protection. And I usually wait until the last part of March or early April before taking the straw off the beds. Do not rake out leaves of native plant beds or wildflower beds. This is because a lot of solitary bees and wasps and other beneficials will overwinter in the soil, and the leaves provide protection for those insects. As the soil warms and the air temperatures get warmer, those insects will emerge, and then you can rake out the leaves. This will usually happen in April. Do not sweep salt from your driveway or sidewalks and sweep it into flower beds or the lawn. It's best to sweep it up into a dustpan. Do not set out tropical plants too early. Some of us may be overwintering tropical plants in the house, but daytime temperatures need to be consistently in the 70s and nighttime temperatures in the 50s before setting them out. And if you have any gardening questions, you can contact me at the Adair County Extension Center.